Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the 2024 reveal of the ASCM Top 10 Trends in Supply Chain. I'm your moderator today, Matthew Talbert, Senior Manager of Research at ASCM. I'm also the liaison to the Innovation and Sensing Committee. The Sensing Subcommittee under the Innovation and Sensing Committee puts in a lot of hard work to develop these trends. So I'm not the star of the show today. I'm going to let our expert panel introduce themselves, starting with Armand.
Thanks for your kind words, Matt. My name is Armand van Oostrom. I have a background in supply chain operations as a consultant with KPMG, later on as COO with companies in the UK and mainland Europe. Now I'm a senior lecturer and researcher at The Hague University of Applied Sciences.
Great, thank you. Kara, you're up next.
Hi, Matt. I am Kara Kirtland. I'm a data science strategist at HP in our worldwide supply chain organization.
Okay, thank you. And Lucille.
Hello, everyone. I am Lucille Doctor. I am a senior manager at US Cellular, and I have over 16 years of experience working in the supply chain field.
Great, thank you all. Feel free in the chat to let us know where you're listening from. Think of this as an ask me anything about the trends. So please prepare as much questions as you want, but we're going to eat a little bit of vegetables first. I like to give an overview of the methodology. I'm not going to go into great detail on it. We have other resources which you can read on that. But these trends are more than just a couple Zoom calls where these experts arbitrarily pick what they think is important. It is a 6 months long rigorous process. The group of about 27 to 28 subcommittee members. They begin with a literature review. They extract trends. Both of those take about 2 to 3 months. And then there's a process for which they narrow down a list of about 100 trends down to 20 for a vote, and then we get a final top 10. So let's get right to the trends, the big reveal without further ado. Unless you are at ASCM Connect North America, this is the first reveal of the public reveal of the trends in 2024. Armand, start us off. So we have the top 10 trends for 2024. So what is the big question?
Yeah, I guess in the end, it's not just a list of let's have these trends. It's how we are able to translate these trends, yes, these things that are about to set into our own organization, in our own supply chain. So just imagine that you go out without looking at the weather forecast. You will always get it wrong. Let's look at this as this is your weather forecast. And you will adapt it to your own circumstances, but this could be the basis of how you plan your next moves. So that's how I look at as a so what question.
Great, thank you. Kara, feel free to give your take on so what, or why should the people tuning in, care about these trends?
Sure. So I've been on the sensing committee working on these trends for a number of years, and each year they kind of coalesce into a little bit of a change. And you'll see this year there are a few new ones, some things moved around, and I've been sort of looking at how those trends moved each year. And really, if you look even at the new ones, those trends were embedded last year. They were just maybe not called out specifically. And so each year, what's happening with these trends is we're getting crisper about for now forward for the next 3 to 5 years. What is the focus? Where is the industry moving? What are the fundamentals of where we should be investing our time, talent, and resources? And I'm actually pretty excited to see digital supply chain at the top now, because I look at that as the foundation. As a data science strategist, I spend my time a lot in number 2 and number 3. Big data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning. Like, how do we gain insights from our data and drive direction? I've done plenty of network analysis. Like, all of these things on our list are super important, but they only are as good as the foundation that we have in place. So if we get the plan, make, source, deliver, returns connected digitally, and we really value that data as an asset, as we design that system, then everything else falls into place. So I'm actually pretty excited about how this is set up now, like where the industry has moved and where the focus really needs to be. I think we're really well aligned.
Great, thank you. Lucille, it's your turn. Here we have a list of 10 trends. So what? Why are these important?
My passion for these trends is a firsthand experience. As a supply chain practitioner, it's based on the issues and the topics I deal with, be it a conversation with industry peers or just through research. We know that these are relevant. And in reflecting through these top 10 trends, if you look at it, they are connected, they are related to one another. Organizations are embracing being optimized, being agile, being resilient. And this was heightened because of the supply chain disruptions we have experienced over the years, the geopolitics that is the reality of our today, along with the pressures to be green and circular in our supply chain. So if I look at this, I look at them as either enabler or driver. All the technology that comes with it, if it's AI, big data analytics, and having that visibility, they are all commingled. So Jit Hitchman did a good summary yesterday on her post, which I really liked. I wanted to do shout out to that because it is a call to action for us as a practitioner, examining this to realize what is relevant to us, and taking that to our executives, bringing it to our industry to identify what are our investments, because it's not just the newest and shiniest thing out there. Taking it back, and these are not one C, two C strategy, reflecting back to your organization on how you can really utilize this to get to that path of supply chain world that we wanted to be at.
Great, thank you. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is your opportunity to ask some good nuanced questions about the trends. So we already have a couple coming in. Think of those questions, please fire away. But the first one is, what is the future of supply chain and sustainability measures? Armand, why don't you start us off with the answer to this question?
Great question, because as it says, measures. So I think we've got two aspects there. One is actually how we measure how good or bad we're doing vis-a-vis sustainability. And the other is, okay, what kind of measures, what are our actions to ensure we deliver? Now, I think most of the companies are already beyond the cost savings perspective on sustainability. I think now sustainability, it's a piggyback ride on traceability, visibility. It's seeing throughout your supply chain how you can connect that end-to-end visibility to create capabilities towards a transformation rather than a cost optimization. And if you think of measurements, it's not just the output, as in, yes, we see cost savings, but the impact it has, for instance, on our immediate environment, but also on our long-term margins. Just as an example, we know some rare metals are in great demand, and that could mean in certain industries that our sustainability drive is not just to recoup those kinds of metals, to through reverse logistics get them back, but also to secure alternatives, to secure new sources. And that goes far beyond the, let's say, the cost perspective on sustainability. So in summary, I think the measures are more towards supply chain transformation and impact than they are on cost reduction and, pardon the expression, greenwashing.
Great, thank you, Armand. I have a follow-up question, or sort of rather to piggyback on that. So, and Kara, you touched on this, that all these trends are important, but a few people have said, the first question was on sustainability. It dropped 2 slots. Does that mean it's lost significance, or is it still of major significance to supply chains?
Yeah, so I would definitely not say that it lost significance. Everything on the list is significant. I think just building on what Armand said, if we look back, it hasn't been that long ago where sustainability wasn't even on the scorecard for top supply chains for Gartner. And that shift was like, wow, there's a recognition and a renewed, yes, this is important to supply chain. It's important to business success. It's come full circle to customers are demanding it. In order to get contracts, there needs to be a certain level of performance in these areas. So in terms of pure measures, there's also that we're winning business because we're doing the right thing, and that's going to be a differentiator for companies, not just that their costs go down and their profits go up, but they're pleasing customers, and it's becoming this sort of full circle, raise all boats. If we do the right analytics about how to drive the end-to-end supply chain to be circular, to be socially responsible, to have these tenets in place, it impacts the entire supply chain. So where it lands in the top 10 trends isn't as important as how it is addressed. And it is showing up in the other trends. It's showing up in how we do our analytics, where we do our investments. So I think that's the way I would look at it.
Yeah, that's a great point that you can't get from just looking at this list, but hearing from the experts that develop this list is some of these trends can be enablers of each other. We have one specifically on visibility, and traceability. Lucia, I'm going to throw this question to you. What are the key challenges for visibility, traceability, and location intelligence?
One of the key challenges is gathering the data for us to get to that very stable, reliable, predictive analytics of our to get that visibility is having that data. And data, it starts within your organization, and then data from your external factors, if it's the input from your, let's say, suppliers. Those need to be connected. There need to be that coexistence on both organizations to make sure that the information flows through. So one of the getting that real-time visibility or that more advanced way to, let's say, sensing what is happening in final mile delivery. This is one of the use cases in visibility and traceability, or that geolocation is on the transportation world, where can it flag if the road conditions are telling me which route do I take. So the integration of all this it will be an ecosystem. So one of the challenges, if it's a siloed approach, it's not as effective.
Thank you for that. This next one I'm going to kind of do rapid fire style. Someone asked, what are some examples of digital supply chain? So maybe if each of you, starting with you, Armand, going down the cameras that I see, what is one example that you could provide of digital supply chain?
I, yeah, if you think of companies, I think what immediately popped into my head was Walmart, um, where they really have made a big effort in making sure they have an end-to-end digitization of really from procurement up to delivery and return flows. And the neat thing is they actually also link that to their, and I think most of us know their no waste to landfill project. So they are able to trace a lot more. So in companies, I would say that's a primary example, and I would say digital supply chain on the execution side of things is tying it from end to end, from procurement up to the point where you have reverse flows. Um, there are less examples, I would say, of working with planning, as in digital twins, um, and incorporating human-centered automation. I think we're seeing just the beginning of it.
Okay, thank you. Kara, another perspective. Do you have an example, a real example, of digital supply chain?
Sure. So one of the stories I like to tell new supply chain analysts is back in the day, there was a point in time where I was looking at a screen with a procurement specialist, and all the data that I needed for my analysis was on her screen. But the only way to get it was screen by screen, copy pasted out into a spreadsheet, and then analysis could happen. And I said something like, it would be so nice if I could have the data for each one of those SKUs all in one place at the same time. And I walked away, and a couple of days later, she showed up at my desk with this stack of like 2 feet of paper with a screenshot of every single one of the SKUs that I wanted to have analyzed. And I thanked her for her effort. But somehow I guess I didn't ask the question. I didn't describe my problem accurately enough, because obviously that was not data. I couldn't take that stack of paper and do any analysis with it. So an example of digital supply chain is one in which the data that we need to run the business is truly digitalized, and we're not sending spreadsheets back and forth, and we have a common data model, so that when I say I've shipped this many of this product at this time, that can be picked up by the next node in the supply chain, and they can gather that data, and at its best, it's all in one data model, and it's not being sent back and forth, but the data is being elevated and in, say, a cloud environment or a common environment.
I love that. I love that we're getting different perspectives. But Lucille, it's now your turn to provide a real example of digital supply chain.
So when I think of digital supply chain, it's a massive environment. It's all the integration of the technologies and data throughout our supply chain, and for to be efficient, to have that visibility and that informed decision making. With my background heavily on operations, logistics, transportation, manufacturing, I remember over 5 years ago with the hype of 5G. A lot of the use cases being brought up are in the warehousing or the manufacturing world, where the idea back then of a vacuum cleaner doing the preliminary audit running in the warehouse was very cool at that time. And now I've seen it many times in different operations where it's scanning data as it's walking through the a warehouse and sensing if there's anything that is out of normal, if it's not in the right place. So in the operations world, there are a lot of application of the digital supply chain that we are already experiencing. It's not a utopian world where, oh, there's all these other things that may be happening. We are experiencing it in little doses. Also, in the tying to the digital or the data that Kara was mentioning, we are utilizing it a lot in our operations planning or supply chain planning, gathering different types of data from different sources. So the application of that in demand planning, demand sensing, we are seeing that if you're going to the stores and it's capturing what type of product you're using, or sometimes it's asking you, did you like this product? Those are little tidbits of data that is being gathered and being sent back to the consumer or to the end user of this data that will be able to identify which product is really needed or which ones do we need to segregate a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Excellent question and excellent answers. That was good practical examples. Next up, although in the infancy, what are the ways AI is being utilized currently, or how it will be implemented in the medium term? And they specify 3 to 5 years. Kara, I'm going to throw this question to you.
Sure. Um, so I was thinking about what questions we might get around AI, and it strikes me that uh, this will not live well. This will not live on very well because it's going to move so fast, right? So in terms of things that are happening right now, we have Chat GPT, we have co-pilots, we have the ability to have that pair programmer that is helping with efficiencies, right? We have the ability to summarize documents quickly and gain insights quickly. Where things are going is you're going to have that assistant that's right alongside you for every single task. But to get there, this is where those that have built their data model and have maintained history and they have joinability of their data because they have a common set of master data that they treat as an asset, they are going to have a better baseline. And AI is a multiplier. So those that start at a higher level multiplied will have that step shift better performance than those that haven't put those investments in place. So it's really important that businesses really think about, you can't do AI without the data model, without that digital supply chain, without the beginning investment in the people and the tools that enable the analytics to happen.
Great, thank you. Next question, and keep them coming. Is deglobalization of supply chains possible without increasing inflation? I know that that sort of blends the lines between supply chain and finance, which are related. Lucille, you're sort of our in-house geopolitical and deglobalization expert. I'm going to throw that one to you.
Certainly, we talk about moving when we think deglobalization. Are we moving our own infrastructure, or are we working with our suppliers to bring them closer to us? I will not confirm that this is going to be a cost economical if you are operating in a large scale, because you have already that existing equipments that are existing on different in a wide footprint globally. But where comes to place the other players in supply chain, such as your procurement or working with the other stakeholders internally with your organization, I still believe that it can be effective without without investing too much, because right now we have real time experience. We have a real life experience with what happened 4 years ago, where we are able to pivot with our suppliers. With the enhancements right now, also with the technology, it is easier to work with tier 2, tier 3 suppliers. So having that raw material that is probably forecasted 4 or 5 years down the road, we can make an adjustment on that. As I was saying, with working with the procurement resources, that is where they can work on contract negotiations. So overall, bringing back to a closer footprint is still a practical solution. It's been observed, and we see it something that is rising. It's the new topic right now, as not just as a reaction, as the supply chain practitioners rethink things. It is make easier to make an adjustment for something that is closer. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we got your connection cut out a bit, but we got nearly all of your answer. Thank you for that. Um, Next question, and this was a good. These were presented at a Connection Cafe at ASCM Connect, and there was a lot of discussion around number 4. Um, so that being said, I'm going to throw this question to you, Armand. Could you elaborate more on the new trend number 4, investing in people? What pressures of the economy do you think contributed to this trend making the list? So there's kind of two questions in there. There's one more what is number 4, and second, the pressures of the economy maybe having an influence on this getting on the list.
I think that's an excellent question, especially if you're in supply chain. You are really connected to the world as it is. There's no way you can avoid the pressures from the outside, and the two aspects there. If you look at people, as in certain places in the world, there's a distinct shortage um, of staff, and especially if I think of Western Europe, if I also in areas of the US, it's engineering technical staff, um, where there's really a shortage. So that's pushing towards the extra investment, and investment is in time and in money. Time and money equates also to there's talent you want to attract. So these are the people that make an impact in the near future. But there's also people within your organization that you need to retrain, that you need to bring to another level, because, and again, these trends are interlinked. The systems that we're using are changing. They need another skill set altogether. So the time is not just invested in looking for new people. It's also in upscaling, updating the people we already have in our organization. There is an add-on effect if you do that, because the people in your organization will realize that they're not treated as an asset, but they are a part of the organization. They will feel more listened to. They can really show that they contribute, and therefore attrition will go down. So there's an economic pressure due to shortages, but there's also almost an inside-out pressure where you see that your systems and your processes will drive the upscale and the updating of skills.
Hey, thank you, Armand. This next one is another good rapid-fire question. Usage of artificial intelligence is increasing exponentially. which areas of the supply chain would be affected the most? So I'm just going to go around quickly on this one, and Kara, I'm going to start with you.
All of them. Yeah, I mean, I think it really is it's going to affect every aspect of analytics and insights. Anywhere we want to drive insights, prediction. I would say it'll probably start in planning. Planning is where we're bringing in the data and wanting to drive those choice points. So at least that's where I would think to invest first, personally.
And planning is a major foundational part of supply chains as well, so that makes sense. Lucille, which part of the supply chain do you think will be affected the most by AI?
I'm more nearsighted right now because it's the closer operations or the area of supply chain that I work with. I think about from product development, procurement, manufacturing, because Kara already called out planning, although that is currently the environment I operate with. I think that those three are the currently the biggest consumers of this technology, by being able to identify through consumer insights, being able to identify what is needed in a development of product, and all the way to manufacturing that. There is that stream of activities that is being driven by AI.
Okay, thank you. Armand, which part, from your perspective, which part of the supply chain will be most affected by AI?
Oddly, I would go for the linkage between forecasting and delivery. We've seen newspaper companies using AI to forecast the demand for papers at a certain vendor point. And so they've coupled the forecasting to all kinds of factors, down to the weather, even the time of day, the weekday, the area in which the vendor point is located, and they've already seen tremendous uptakes. If you see sales at one point where they had shortages of papers, and areas where they always had leftovers were brought down, and I mean significantly brought down. So we already see the application and see the linkages now also between the planning part, the forecasting, and the delivery. And the AI also makes it much, I would say, more responsive to variables changing.
Great, thank you. This next one, maybe we could go around again for this question. So it's around digital transformation, which involves a significant amount of change management. I've seen many cases in which the industry where the idea was right, but execution failed because of inability to handle the scaled changes, both in person as a system. Now, how do we overcome that? So I'm kind of thinking this is more around digital supply chain, our number one trend, which is related to many of them. So it's talking about overcoming the challenges of digital transformation. Armand, can you start us off on that one?
Yeah, so I'm intrigued by the change management part there. Scaling up solutions it is indeed notorious for failing. If we see in the rapid changes in this area, this almost calls for a more agile approach where you design, test, or design, build, test, and improve in very short cycles before you scale up. The gap between, let's say, initial tests and scale up tended to be very big because, and that, it makes good sense to sometimes go for a big bang. I would argue current situations ask for a more agile approach. As for the change management, I'm not sure what the question was leading to. It almost seems that the human factor there, that we are not able to take the people in our organization with us in those changes, seems to have an impact as well. I'm not sure what Carrie and Lucille think about this.
Yeah, so all good points. When I think about how to make digital supply chain work, how to do MOC, the thing that comes to mind for me is with any project, you have scope, schedule, resources, and you have sponsorship that needs to be in place to make those decisions. And one thing that tends to be an impediment to any delivery is, are we delivering a tool or are we delivering a solution, right? And projects tend to get tied up in, well, I need to optimize scope, schedule, and resources. Well, I'm out of time. Here's what you get, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the end of the time, you need to have a data product. You need to have a solution. It doesn't matter that I have a planning system if the output is not giving me the results that I need. And so really the way to be successful in digital supply chain is to stop having the mindset of delivering tools and start having the mindset of delivering capabilities, data assets. If the data coming out of the tool doesn't support the next process along the way, then we failed. If the data is not aligned with the step coming in and the step coming out, then we failed. And so if the question is, how do we overcome these failures we've had in the past, it's really a change in mindset about what are the objectives of the projects. And as Armand said, we need to be agile, right? We can't just go in with, it has to be this way and get to the end of the project and we need to be flexible along the way. But by the time we get to the end, it needs to be a solution and not oh, we're out of time, right?
Thank you. Lucille, anything to add to overcome some of the challenges of digital transformation, or adapting to a more digital supply chain?
Yeah, I'd like to pile on to what Kara said. So I mentioned earlier, taking it to your executives or to your organization, reflecting how this tied to your overall organization strategy. Because I have witnessed some attempts where, hey, here's a cool thing, generative AI. Let's bring this. This is be something that can be a differentiator for us in the industry, but the entire organization is not yet ready there. Karen mentioned about having data ready. So you have inputs that you would have to build on first. And if it doesn't balance with what the direction your organization would be, or even the brand of your organization, that is already something that is not aligned. So overall, when you think about the enhancements or what you're going to tackle on a digital supply chain, it should be aligned with your overall organizational strategy.
Right, thank you. We have time for a couple more. And given that this is your opportunity to get nuanced questions and input about the trends, someone is asking specifically about trend number 8, which was number 6 last year. So in general, Kara, I'm going to throw this one to you. And this may or may not be easy or difficult to answer, but how important in general is cybersecurity in supply chains? Maybe if you could provide a little bit more nuance to how much of a priority that is and why it's on the list.
Sure. So we need to protect our assets, right? Things are changing very rapidly. We have increased threat levels in terms of hacks to the system, ways that things can go badly. And we've seen supply chains shut down due to cyber attacks, right? So this needs to be front and center in decision making. It's not going to go away as we move into more connected supply chains using AI. It needs to be in the forefront of how we keep our supply chains secure. I was watching a few different YouTube symposiums on this sort of thing in the last few months. And it really comes back to, just like with our other analytics, we need to have sort of an agile approach to what are the threats, how real are they, how might they attack us, which tools, which data, and come up with a strategy to, okay, let's mobilize, let's go after each one of those threats as we understand them. So it needs to be an ongoing cycle for how we sort of protect our assets.
If I can add on that too,
Absolutely.
Matt, our top number 10 trend, the geopolitics and deglobalization, it is it could be a contributor in putting a risk to this massive infrastructure that we are in or building. So right now, a supply chain practitioner is probably called to action also because I don't know if there is truly a globalized standard on what that security looks like. We probably do not even know how to govern this, what to do with this abundance of information and this infrastructure that we have. So for us also is driving for that cybersecurity, understanding back to what I was saying on understanding your investment. That's one of the things that you have to consider is how you would be able to protect that information.
Great,
And
thank you.
just one
Yeah,
one
please.
small addition. It's also on the list because we see the tension between we need to share information across our supply chain within our ecosystem, but at the same time we need to protect it. So that's a conundrum, I would say.
Great, thank you. This has been an excellent session. We're going to wrap it up with one last question. I think will be a good one to tie a bow around this. And it may, similar to the last one, it may be very difficult or may be very hard to answer. But that question is, how do we deglobalize supply chains? I'm going to go around the horn on this one. And Armand, I'm going to start with you.
Well, how do we? Actually, it takes into account that if we look at the complexity of the supply chains we've built over the last decade, it was really very much cost driven. We were looking for the lowest point of cost. Over time, we've seen that the perception of risk has gone up considerably in terms of geopolitics, but also in terms of our vulnerability of our supply chains. So I think the first step is to come to terms with the fact that we allow ourselves some redundance in our supply chain. That's a strategic choice. So if you start with deglobalization, I think that's the first mindset change. And the second, that's an open door, I know. So why would you deglobalize? So you really have to. This is a very complex area. Long-term investments involved, very complex and sometimes rapid changing situations. So I think the strategic choice comes first. There's reasons enough to do it. There's also some very good reasons not to do it, but it starts with the mindset that if we want to safeguard our supply chains, we need to build in redundancy.
All right, thank you. Kara, you're up next. How do we deglobalize supply chains? The world's depending on you.
Well, so I've been in supply chain for a little over 25 years, so I've seen this go full circle. When I first started, we were regional for a lot of the right reasons. Being close to the customer, managing costs, as we were able to provide that variety near, close to the customer. I actually drove the analytics that helped us to figure out, well, how do we drive profit maximization by centralizing while still allowing for some late point differentiation in the regions. And now things have changed to the extent that there are different drivers to cost and complexity that the analytics would drive us to the profit maximizing future is deglobalization. So the way we go after it is really to understand what that future is. Where are the opportunities to be nimble? Where are the opportunities to have the agility built into the right places? It's really about moving the supply base and having those suppliers able to respond in the different regions. So how do you do it? It's synergistic with knowing your end-to-end supply chain, recognizing how to create commonality and modularity where it makes sense, and you get the movement into deglobalization by piloting, right? And taking advantage of working with the overall supply base to provide the sort of momentum for you.
All right, thank you. And Lucille, as supply chain professionals are superheroes, we'll ask you, how could supply chains deglobalize?
So we have been talking about this for a long time. Either it's nearshoring, reshoring, different. It's not just the last 3 years that we have been considering this. So there are different cases that it has been proven effective, especially in a more demanding environment where the consumers needed it right away or a change on the demand. So in considering the globalization, we have to consider what are our driving factors. Are you exporting a lot from a location where an increase in tariff might be the biggest threat into your profitability? If you're have the risk of, if you're nearshoring or doing it operating domestically, are you then have that threat of increase in your operational costs because of the labor, or is it because there might be some risk on a neighbor or other political factors within, let's say, domestically within United States? So what I'm saying is try to understand first why this is an approach that fits to your organization or your supply chain. Because one of the question earlier, I was a little bit challenged answering because I cannot point blank say, yeah, it's going to happen. You will require some investment on this. So tying it back to what both Arman and Kara has mentioned, it's really understanding the important factors why this is the solution that is needed for your operations right now.
Let me just tag on to that, because the supply chain professional is trying to figure out, well, how do I reduce cost and do this, right? Or how do I at least maintain costs and do this? And to Lucille's point, the way to get after that as a supply chain professional is to recognize the all-in long-term costs of the entire supply chain, and recognize that we're not all about cost. We're about the profitability of our supply chain and our products and our business. And as we start to look at the tariffs, the cost of having variety in near with our customers, being able to be responsive as we have disruptions and that sort of thing, pulling in and understanding those other costs help us to recognize that there are savings associated with being regional, and really driving against those long-term realities help us to drive those right decisions that then allow us to make those longer-term decisions.
Great, thank you very much. I want to thank the panel here for giving their time to answer your questions on the fly. I hope they had as much fun as I did, and I hope all of you listening enjoy this as much as I enjoyed moderating it. There is a blog post on these trends that goes into more detail about what each of them mean. This is something unique to our trends lists. We actually provide some definitions and details on what digital supply chain means, for example, or agility and resilience. If you are interested in developing the next rounds of trends and want to be a part of the sensing subcommittee for next year, you may email me at research@ascm.org. We're always looking for volunteers. We'd be happy to have you. But I just want to thank everyone for joining and thank the panel for their time.
It was a joy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.